Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us in the studio today. Today we'll be discussing the outcomes from kaust's first Clean Combustion Summer School. The week-long course brought together students from around the world to learn from experts in academia and industry about innovations in fuel, engines and flames. I'm joined in the studio today by Professor Angela Violi from the University of Michigan and
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And Professor Mani Sarathy here at kaust.
Hello, thank you.
It's great to have you in the studio. I had a question for you, Professor Violi. This is the first Combustion Institute summer school in the Middle East. Why are these summer schools so important?
So I think a summer school are a great moment for people to get together, for the students to learn about what's happening in the community, to make relationship and collaboration, to establish a new collaboration, but also to get familiar with the new research ideas that come up. So while I was here the whole week, I had the opportunity to hear a lot of different approaches for the same problem sometimes. And so I think the beauty has been really the richness of approaches and the diverse background of the people that presented. And I think this has been a great moment for everybody who attended this week. kaust has been a great opportunity. It's my second time here, and I think if I have to pinpoint a difference between the one that were before the United States, I sent my students there in the past, this one is the audience was very diverse. So there were PhD students and postdoc, but there was also a high percentage of companies, so it was very rich for us to have the feedback from them too.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would like to add a little bit to Professor Violi's comments. This is the first Combustion Institute summer school organized here in the Middle East. And these summer schools, I would say, started around 8 years ago. It was pioneered by Princeton University, and the Combustion Institute really supported this activity to encourage students in combustion to become more diverse in their views, rather than just studying their narrow area of combustion research, being it chemistry, physics, applied math, or laser diagnostics, to really get good breadth and to learn from the leaders in the combustion community. What are the latest advances and in-depth knowledge for various topics. So they started in Princeton, and then they grew from there, and they've been held in Europe, India, China. And as these schools were growing, kaust as a combustion research institute and center was also growing, and we're about 5-6 years old now as a clean combustion research center. So we felt it was about time. Now we've had good impact in our research activities, but now it's time for the kaust Clean Combustion Research Center to utilize its knowledge, its resources, and of course a lot of its students in PhD and postdocs to create a new summer school here in the Middle East and the region, to now spread that knowledge of the Combustion Institute, which has been there and elsewhere in the world, now within this region.
It's a great opportunity. And I was wondering, who are the partners involved in the summer school, and what does this add for the student experience? So
the summer school is sponsored by the Combustion Institute. It's an international organization made up of sections from many different countries. And all the countries of Europe, North America, South America, Asia, Australia, Africa as well, and now here in the Middle East. And different countries have sections of the Combustion Institute, and we all work together to advance combustion as a science and as a technology for the benefit of society. And the schools then were created by the Combustion Institute to encourage future generations to also develop expertise in the field of combustion. So they're a great partner in this, the Combustion Institute. In addition, kaust, the Clean Combustion Research Center, utilize our own resources to help kickstart the summer school here at kaust. So from a financial perspective, we acknowledge the two sources of funding from kaust and also from the Combustion Institute. But in addition to that, of course, we consider our instructors our partners. So we had Professor Violi coming from the University of Michigan, Professor Kaoru Maruta from Tohoku University in Japan, and Dr. Anthony Dean from General Electric. and these being our key 3 instructors from abroad. And then we had 3 instructors from within KAUST, Professor Bengt Johansen, an engines expert, Professor Hong Im, an expert on advanced numerics and mathematics for combustion simulation, and Professor Amir Farouk in the field of chemical kinetics. So we brought experts, our partners from outside, we brought our experts inside, and we created a nice program to educate the participants about the latest advances in combustion technology.
And it's amazing to hear what happens when these experts come together. And Professor Violi, what valuable experience do you think students gain from attending these sessions?
Well, so as I was mentioning before, I think they are a great opportunity to learn about new approaches, new perspective, and so to open their mind and, you know, think about the research and future, maybe in a different way, you know, be exposed to different activity. Another value that I think that the summer schools has is for the students, you know, they are deciding what to do with their research, for example. So especially when you talk about undergraduate or graduate students, they need to commit to a PhD, for example. And so having the opportunity to spend time in a place that is a great, you know, key player for us in the combustion, I think it's amazing for them. They get familiar with the place, they get familiar with the faculty. So once they are ready to make the decision about the PhD and undergraduate also, you know, it's easier for them to relate to the place. So I will say there is a value scientifically, because that's the beauty of combustion. I think this is a highly interdisciplinary, and this week was a great moment to, you know, see again that happening. But also personally, they get to know people, and so once they're close, you know, to decision of next job, also they know where to go.
Some great knowledge and connections.
Right.
Professor Sarathy, why is knowledge in this area so important for the kingdom?
You know, the kingdom, I think it's well established now, is highly reliable, relying on combustion generated power. And not only the kingdom, but the entire world relies heavily on combustion generated power for the energy needed to power our societies and our economies. Here in the kingdom, being a major producer of hydrocarbon resources, needs to innovate combustion to ensure that these hydrocarbon resources can be used in a sustainable and environmentally friendly manner in the future. And I think in this course is what we try to communicate is that combustion has major challenges going forward in terms of reducing emissions, improving efficiency to limit climate change, and also helping to make combustors more efficient and more durable in practical situations. And the kingdom being heavily relying on combustion, but also its main resources being used in combustion technologies, really needs to understand how combustion can be innovated and advanced so that we can responsibly use hydrocarbon resources in the future. But more than that, I think what we as a combustion research center, as an academic community, encourages that combustion is not just to improve technology. Combustion as a science is very exciting, and it's very stimulating intellectually, because you bring together different disciplines: chemistry, physics, molecular dynamics and quantum chemistry, laser diagnostics, advanced mathematics, high performance computing, many different areas, engines, gas turbines. All of these things come together to make a device which is extremely complicated. Extremely complicated, but only possible because people understand fundamental aspects in all different areas. And what we want to encourage is that combustion is not just a field where you come to develop a technology. It's really to push boundaries in all of these fundamental areas of chemistry, physics, science, and technology. And that's very important for the kingdom, because the kingdom is moving more to a knowledge-based economy. And that was the goal of this school, actually, is we brought together people from outside. We brought 20 international students from Europe, South America, North America, Asia. But then we had students from within the kingdom as well. We had 25 students from within the kingdom from universities like KFUPM, King Faisal University, Taif University, King Abdulaziz, and then we brought, and Yambu Industrial College, and we brought people from Saudi companies, Aramco, Sabic, Saudi Electric Company, and we brought them all together in one place. We told them about the advances, and then we let them mix with each other also. So people from industry talk to the fundamental researchers and really understand what's the fundamental aspects that are being innovated. The fundamental researchers talk to the people from industry and realize how relevant their studies are to practical applications. And that was very important dynamic that was needed. And I think it's going to encourage more interaction, more knowledge sharing in the field of combustion, but also hopefully in other areas that KAUST is good at within the kingdom.
Thinking about the fundamentals brings me nicely on to my next question, actually, which was for you, Professor Violi, about your fuel fundamentals classes and how do they help students with their future studies?
Well, I think that speaks a little bit to what Mani just mentioned. My presentation specifically was very fundamental. So we started the week with very applied talks. And then we, I think, slowly went down to the fundamentals, first experimentally, and then mine was the last talk of the week. And I do computer simulations. So what I presented basically was the need of using very atomistic, detailed analysis of the system in order to answer some more macroscopic properties that they could see in a device, for example. And I think the beauty here, as Mani was mentioning, is that combustion is very broad, but there is also an understanding that you need the applied side, but you also need the fundamentals. So it's easier to see people working together, recognizing that maybe you need to go back to the fundamental to explain some of the more macroscopic phenomena. My talk was about the needs for some of the basic chemical and physics aspect of the process. And that's more the scientific part. I have to say that, what I have noticed also this week is that I had a lot of, especially female students coming to me. So besides the scientific aspect, I think more a personal interaction, and we talked a little bit about what it means to be in academia, what it means to be as a woman in academia. And this morning, actually, I was on the panel for women in combustion also, that I think Mani organized very nicely. So I think there are a few contributions that come out from this week.
Yeah, I think one of the highlights of the event, and everybody talked about after this morning, was the Women in Combustion panel. And it's a part of the Combustion Institute. Combustion Institute wants to encourage more women to come into the field and break down any barriers which maybe create some resistance for them to come into the field. And we had a very nice panel with PhD students, industry professors, professors in the field of combustion. I encourage anybody watching, go watch the YouTube video or Facebook video about that panel. And they were coming from all over the world, and we saw that even in this region, women can get into combustion, and we have very good examples in our region of people being successful studying and working in the field of combustion, but also in North America, in Europe. And again, and I think for the field of combustion, this is what's needed, again, to move us in new directions. We need more ideas, people from different regions, women, men, all backgrounds coming together to really, again, push this technology in new directions. And I'm reminded that historically combustion came from the steam engine. It was big motors, big dirty things. But really, it's now commonly accepted that what's going to take human society to the next level in terms of economic development is studying things at the molecular level. And that was what Professor Violi talked about, was an excellent example of that. We're studying combustion really at the atomistic level, individual molecules reacting, creating energy, creating emissions. And you can use that knowledge not only to improve combustion, but as she showed, also to make other types of nanomaterials, nanoparticles, which have medical applications, drug delivery. So again, the knowledge that we obtain in combustion is readily translatable to other fields.
Yeah. So maybe if I can add to this point, part of the presentation that I had was also about the biology part. So we talked about the combustion, you form nanoparticles, but also how you can exactly translate to a biological or health effect that are very important for the industry that they care about. So still from an atomistic perspective, how you go having a nanoparticle to the damage or the interaction they can have with the cells, for example, in the body. So I think hopefully it was interesting.
It's great to hear the field growing in every way, it seems. Professor Sarathy, what are you hoping students gained from the programme, and will there be others?
So really what we're hoping is that people are inspired. Okay, they're inspired that despite media saying combustion technology is not relevant, despite companies saying combustion engines are not the future, that they should be inspired that combustion is very important for human society, and there are technologies, for example, very advanced types of reciprocating engines that are very high efficiency, in excess of 60%, that Professor Bengt Johansen talked about, which will be coming, which will bring benefits to society and which will drastically reduce CO2 emissions, as well as very advanced gas turbine technologies, as we heard from Tony Dean, in the area of aviation and power generation, which are going to be, again, much more efficient, extremely complex, very low emitting in terms of emissions, and making basically our technology still feasible for human society in the future. So one thing is they should be inspired that they should work in this area, that there's still a lot of work to do, but also from an intellectual perspective to be stimulated, to be able to know that you can go very deep into chemistry if you want. You can go very deep into laser diagnostics or into advanced math and numerics. And one of our professors this morning, Maruta, has in part of a panel, a career panel, he said the thing that makes a PhD graduate different than other individuals in a company or in society is that they have depth in one area. And everybody who does a PhD gets very specialized and they have depth in one area of expertise. But what he said was even more important is if you have depth in one area, even if you have depth in another area, say cooking, once you have depth in multiple areas, you make connections then. And I think that's the purpose of our school, is to give the students an indication that you can have depth in your area, which you're studying for 4 years in your PhD, in your postdoc, but then you can come to other areas. Your knowledge can be translated to those areas. You can, in 1 week, we can give pretty good depth, but of course you can go home. You have now the basic tools in this other field. You can study more and get depth in multiple areas, and then they'll be able to make the connections that are needed to solve these really complex problems. That's the beauty about combustion. The problems are so complex, and you need to challenge yourself intellectually and learn multiple things. Bring them all together, either by yourself or with others in your company, your industry, your research communities, to solve the really challenging problems. And we hope then there'll be more schools like this for this reason. And we hope that future schools will even bring in other disciplines. Professor Violi and I were talking about introducing machine learning and artificial intelligence in the field of combustion. And we have started making advances in those areas, and possibly future schools will start having lectures in those areas to, again, improve the knowledge transfer and, again, make our whole field grow and advance even further to make our technology better for society. That's the end goal.
Sounds good. And thinking about connections, are there plans to keep the students connected now that the summer school is coming to an end, such as an alumni network or somewhere that the students who attended can stay in touch with each other? Normally, we have found that students assemble themselves, especially these young ones. And I learned this actually from my own students who attended the first Combustion Institute-sponsored school in Europe. I think it was in Lund, maybe in 2013 or 14. And they came back, and they had already made their own Facebook group, and they were already connected with each other. So they don't rely on us to make them connected. But we have archived all the material. Besides the people who are here physically, we had at least 30, 40 people always viewing our lectures live on the internet, in Facebook and YouTube. So that archival stuff is there. People can go and see what we did here the last week. They can join our Facebook page. So I think from a virtual space, the students that were here have already connected. I'm sure they'll make their own connections. But one thing we're going to try to do as faculty members, and maybe from a
more top-down perspective is we're planning to have, in our region of Saudi Arabia, some more interaction with other universities. So we've already had discussions with KF, UPM, Taif, and King Abdulaziz University to now bring together maybe another summer school more geared towards the fourth-year undergrads. And that could be, it'll have a different flavor. It won't be as deep as this one that's sponsored by the Combustion Institute, but it will still encourage young engineers, young minds, scientists here in the kingdom to consider pursuing combustion as a field for higher education. So we're talking about connecting universities within Saudi, connecting students in mechanical engineering, chemistry, aerospace, engineering in different universities together to learn more about combustion. So we'll be doing those activities, and the CCRC will be working in that area.
Fantastic. Sorry.
So one other thing I just want to add to this, I met a lot of women here while this week, not only professional but faculty and also students. And actually, before coming here, we were talking about, kind of create some kind of web for us, some kind of group that hopefully we will be able to, move forward. It was really nice.
Sounds good. And if anyone watching today is interested in finding out more about the summer school, you can visit ciss.kaust.edu.sa. And thank you both so much for joining us today in the studio. It's been a pleasure hearing about the summer schools.